Good afternoon, sir. I am John Bert Misa with Scream Delta, and today Group 9, reporter of Group 9, and we report about the Module 11, which is the procedures in the preparation and presentation of disputed documents in court. So, in Lesson 1.1, photographs of documents as evidence. So, generally, photographing of document is the vital importance in the establishment of proofs in question document cases. A permanent record of it can be considered indispensable to a successful examination of a presentation of the case in court. To meet this requirement, the document photographer should have a wide photographic knowledge, training, and experience. He should be aware of the fundamental operational capabilities and limitations in the areas of films, lighting, lighting equipment, type of cameras available for the specific purpose, type of lenses suited for the given cases, and supplemental equipments which will increase efficiency such as tripod, camera stand, filters, extension tubes, cable release, lens hood, floodlight level, and etc. So let's proceed to in general guide in the correct lightning of erasures. So the correct lightning for the separate erasure is determined by experiment. As a general guide, this step should be tried. So the first is the ordinary lighting. So obviously the first step is to look at the document by ordinary reflected light. The second is the side lighting. Try lighting from various angles. An extremely oblique angle will often be found useful. If some particular light and viewing angle make the erasure visible, duplicate set up for the camera. The third is transmitted light. Look at the document with the light coming through it. Turn the document over and repeat. The fourth is magnification. Examine the paper with a magnifier such as a hand glass or a low power binocular microscope. Magnifications up to about 10 times are most useful. And ikalima is a polarized light. Light the document with polarized light using a Kodak Light. For example, examine it through Kodak screen. And the last is the filters. Look at the document through various filters, either separate filters or the viewing filters in the Kodak Master Photo Guide. And let's move in chemical methods. So, an erasure can be brought up with iodine farming. Iodine farming is a general procedure includes reveals the process and extent of an erasures. So makita niya we can see the erasures through putting an iodine. So second is restore some of the writing, and third is that delineates any area that had previously been wet. So basa. So wag kuha. Then the different ways proceed in different methods in document photography. There are 6 methods in document photography. The first method is the transmitted light photography, which is used in the examination of watermarks and furnishes a method of determining the identity of difference in paper by showing arrangement of the fibers and the markings of Wargos and Danderol. Photographed by transmitted light will also clearly the uneven distribution of ink in interruptive stroke and the presence of the added ink in retouched strokes. The second is the photomicrography. The process of obtaining photographs of magnified images of small subjects is known as photomicrography. It has a wide application in many fields where the minute scrutiny of an object is necessary and a court exhibit of a magnified image is needed. So, kinahanglan siya. One. And the third, in photomicrography has two types, which is the low power photography and the high power photomicrography. So the low power photomicrography, also called macro photography or photomicrography, normally carried on by simply using a short focal length lens on camera with a long extension tube or below. The second is the high-power photomicrography. Ordinarily requires the use of lens camera attached to a compound microscope. The image produced by the lens system of the microscope simply is projected upon the film in the camera. And number three in the methods of document photography is the ultraviolet photography, and also has a three types, which is the straight ultraviolet photography, ultraviolet luminescence photography, ultraviolet fluorescence photography. And ultraviolet photography is an the region energy spectrum between the X-ray band and the visible light band, and adjoining the latter of its violet end is a band of rays known as ultraviolet. Photograph made by using ultraviolet rays as the light source sometimes reveal physical or chemical differences. So, subjects that are undetectable by any type of photography. So, here we can move in the type of ultraviolet photography, which is the straight ultraviolet photography. It's a method of taking a picture in which camera is used to record the difference in a subject, reflection, transmission, or absorption of ultraviolet rays in much the same manner as a light photography. The second is the ultraviolet luminescence photography. It's the process of taking a picture of subject that is imitating or giving out invisible radiation in the long wave ultraviolet region. So while it's being radiated by external short wave ultraviolet rays. And the last is the ultraviolet fluorescence photography. Basically, fluorescence photography is almost as simply as many other kinds of visible light photography. All black and white films, all colors films can be used. And generally speaking, color is better than black and white for fluorescence photography. High-speed Echtachrome is gold chromatic film in black and white photograph. Black and white. The filter most often used is a routing be in color and key to yellow or orange filters in black and white works. The fourth methods of document photography is the infrared photography, defined as taking a picture with infrared rays by means of camera loaded with film sensitive to infrared radiations. However, infrared pictures often are produced without camera, and they are also taken sometimes with films that are not sensitive to infrared radiations. And there are types of infrared photography. There are two types. First is the straight infrared photography, and second is indirect infrared photography. So in straight infrared photography, straight to mean exhibiting no deviation from what is accepted as usual or normal photograph undertaken using infrared film in an ordinary camera with an infrared filter over the camera lens or any light source. The second is the indirect infrared photography. It is possible to take infrared pictures indirectly that are very similar to those obtained by the straight techniques using infrared film. One method uses a device called an image converter. The image is transferred into a visible light image on the fluorescent screen of the converter can be observed usually and photographed with any camera loaded with fast panchromatic film. It is necessary to use infrared film. And the fifth methods of document photography is the infrared luminescence photography. It is a different of infrared photography. So luminescence is the process of taking pictures of a subject that is imitating or giving out invisible radiations in the long wavelength extending into infrared regions. And the sixth methods of document photography is the digital photography. Digital photography is defined by storing images on computer memory or floppy disk instead of film. Digital cameras bypass film processing by displaying images immediately when connected to computer. As digital photography phenomenon gains momentum, the number of digital camera manufacturers has increased. This category of digital camera would include the Apple, QuickTake, Casio, Canon, and Kodak. So, the advantage of digital computer photography. Here's the advantage of photography, which is the first is immediately available image. So fast pa siya, super fast, immediately dali ra. So no darkroom and chemical needed. So di na maginhanglan og mga ngit or kuan ngit nga room to take pictures or mga chemical needed or kuan nindot. And the third is quality good enough to very good. Fourth is images can be transmitted. Fifth, if option depend on your camera. And six, color balances, saturations, contrast easily change. Seven is limited options. Eight is costly needs computer and printer. And the last nine is requires computer expertise. So, and that's all, sir. And once again, I'm John and thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Agajik Bitinol. I'm the third reporter from Group 9. Please turn your book into page 143. The lesson 11.2 requirements in the preparation of photographic illustration. First, the number and dates of standard signature to be photographed in connection with disputed document or the disputed signature. There should be a number and dates of standard signature that is relevant to the disputed document or signature. And second, the degree of greatest enlargement of the disputed document or the disputed signature and the governing standard writing that are to be enlarged. The size of the document must be large and readable or clear. The classification or group comparison of words or parts, extended writing of or portion of signature or other writing. The document signature or other text must be arranged or categorized so that it will follow logical sequence and cohesion. Number 4, the visibility of transmitted light photograph of disputed document or writing with similar photograph of a standard writing similar in kind. 5. In trace forgery cases, the photographing of disputed signature with the model from which it was trace of model is found, and the printing of photograph of forged signature and model signature or separate transparent films or oiled paper, and also photographing those signature under roads, squares slightly enlarged to show suspicious identity by this method, as well as by use of transparent film or print. The forgery case, tracing, which involves alteration or creation of a document with an intent to deceive others, and picture copy of the disputed signature or document is found. The forged signature and the original signature should be separated in printing it and enlarged to show suspicious identity. Number 6, possible use of stereoscopic illustration showing retouching, overwriting mark of nail points, line crossing erasures, overwriting, overfolds in paper, or in a third dimension characteristics. The stereoscopic illustration that creates illustration of depth in a two-dimensional image using binocular vision must be done to identify suspicious identity from the signature. Then 7, the size of photographs to be used, whether 8 by 12 or 11 by 14, and also whether they are to be arranged in those lit album form of separately portfolio. The size of any picture must be 8 by 12 or 11 by 14 so that it will be clearly visible. The use of large bromide enlargement. The use of bromide enlargement is crucial to enlarging the text. Then, importance of photography for court presentation. First, the writing in question can be accurately enlarged so that every quality and characteristics of it can be clearly and properly interpreted, whether the facts shown point of genuineness or to forgery. The asking statement should be enlarged to be interpreted and to be noticed easily, and well as to pinpoint it. Then, to provide in a number of accurate reproduction of writing in question, thus affording unlimited opportunity for study, comparison, and investigation by any numbers of examiners, which would not be possible by using the original document in question. Providing multiple number of accurate reproductions of writing in question tends to give multiple opportunities for further studies. Photographic duplicate and especially enlargement also enable court and jury to understand and weigh the technical testimony given by the expert regarding their findings. Photographic duplicate is important in order to have a good and clear interpretation of the technical testimony. 4. Photographs can be cut apart as may be desirable and the various parts classified for comparison. Photos can be separated in the court presentation for categorized and categorization or comparison. Coloration due to chemical research or other fraudulent changes otherwise might be overlooked and as misinterpreted. The clear photograph will help to identify the changes of the photography or picture from the suspicious identity. Step in the preparation for trial. First, original notes obtained from clients. Using the client's exact word in the notes will stimulate counsel recall of the things that were should before and after the note word. Second, investigation reports. The investigation reports document is to show the investigation done is fair and timely. It also provides information for legal actions. 3. Written discovery. Written discovery helps both parties gain the information they need to build a strong case and uncover relevant evidence. 4. Deposition. It helps to both parties understand the evidence and avoid surprise at trial. 5. Medical records. They can be used as evidence in legal proceeding and also help establish timelines of event, determine liability, and assesses the standard of care. 6. Information from expert. The expert provides specialized knowledge and unbiased insight. My conclusion about my report is trial preparation is important for managing time effectively and reducing last-minute stress.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Lojag Bell from Group 9. I'm the next reporter. If you have a book, please open in page 145. I'm going to report the lesson 11.3, the qualification of document expert. During the initial discussion with the prospective client, it may be discovered that FDES has been retained by another party involved in the dispute. Due to this conflict, the interest situation, the prospective client will have the locate another qualified expert to assist him or her. While the statement, all men are created equal, is widely accepted to two forensic document. Examiners possess identical professional qualification. Every document examiners draw on a body of knowledge he or she has acquired through the formal education, specialized training, scientific research, and collaboration with the other expert. The number of years experience, the type of cases examined, and testimony given as an expert witness also contribute to a person credential. To those seeking assistance from forensic document, examiners should be closely examine and expert training, qualification, and experience, especially as they apply to the specific problem or matter at hand. In summary, if to become the document expert, you need to 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 the process through formal education, specialized training, scientific research, and collaboration with another expert to become the document expert. And several matters should be addressed when speaking with the expert at the first time. One, can he or she supply an up-to-date curriculum vitae? The expert curriculum vitae should be complete, accurate, and current. Ensure that the stated qualifications are relevant to the forensic document examination and not to the such areas as law enforcement, graphology, profession, private, and investigator, etc. Determine if he expert is employed in a full-time or part-time basis. He highly suspicious of expert who previously little evidence or formalized training or work experience obtained reference from client who can vouch for the expert ability. What professional training has the expert received? Number three, does this training appear to be adequate? Number four, what the expert test during and the end of the training program? Number five, is the expert certified by a recognized certifying body? Six, has the document examiner participated in any proficiency testing program or has she passed the examinations such as those set by the independent professional societies. Number seven, does the document examiner have a fully equipped laboratory? Number eight, is the document evidence secure in the expert laboratory? Number nine, to what extent has the expert developed or advanced in his professional knowledge or technical skills? In this case, I'm going to summary because if I'm going to tackle it by one, I'm going to take a lot of time and I'm going to short this discussion because it can consume more time to the viewers and I'm going to summarize this nine different questions. And number two is what professional training has the expert received? It is generally accepted that the last 2 years of full-time study required before becoming the qualified document examiners. This training should not consist of correspondence courses but rather should be structured program with formal lessons, plan and training. Objective training should be supervised and administered by one or more qualified instructors. Number three, does training appear to be adequate? Keep it in mind that the virtually all government training program for document examiner are minimum 24 months in duration. Truly, half of the time spent to handwriting, identification, and the remainder is spent during the identification of office equipment, typewriting, copiers, mail machines, and rubber stamp. The detection of the alteration to document, the resolution of damaged document, and testifying as an expert witness and other topics. Number four, what is the expert test at the end of the during and the end of the training program? Every formal training program should be include writing, practical, and oral test to ensure that the trainee has met the exceeded appropriate standards. During the school year or the until the end of the training of the document expert, they are proficient in writing, practical, and oral test to ensure that the trainee is exceeded the appropriate standard. Number 5 is the expert certified by the recognized certifying body. Two recognized bodies provided the certification program for forensic document examination in 1997. American Board of Forensic Document Examiner was established and given the mandate of providing the program of certifying in forensic document examination. The ABFDE is the only certifying body recognized by the Canadian Society for Forensic Science, the American Academy for Forensic Science, and the American Society of Question Document Examiner during the 1980. The Forensic Science Society in the United Kingdom established a similar program that set strict standard to the profession. Both of these organizations review the qualification of their certifying examiner every 5 years only by the following accepted protocols, and adherence to strict condition is an expert able to maintain his/her certifying status. Number 6, has the document examiner participated in any proficiency testing program, or has he or she passed the examination such as those set by the independent professional societies? There are organizations who develop and administer proficiency test for forensic document examination. An annual and semi-annual basis, such testing should be complete on a regular basis and include analysis frequently conducted by the expert. The American Society of Question Document Examiner required application to a successful complete battery of written or oral particle test before, during, considered for regular members. The society required that members attend the annual meeting and contribute to its scientific program at least once every 3 years. 7. Does the document examiner have a fully equipped laboratory? Every document examiner should have access to a laboratory with a large areas suitable for examining large number of question and known documents. The facilities should be inspected to ensure it is clean, secure, and orderly. A good quality microscope is indispensable for examining document evidence, or other basic laboratory equipment includes the device for restoring intended impression in paper, instrument for viewing the document under infrared and ultraviolet light, equipment for forensic evidence, as well as a laboratory for reference for materials. 8. Is the document evidence secured? The expert laboratory. Documents should be stored in the vault or lockable cabinet when they are not being examined. The building should be protected by the monitored alarm system. Number 9. To what extent has the expert developed or advanced his professional knowledge or technical skills? Document examination, like all branches of science, is ever-changing. Practitioners must be strive to keep abreast of new office technologies and modern investigative techniques. Forensic document examiner should be regularly attend conference and participate in their scientific program on a regular basis. Continuing education and fundamental to professional growth. A document examiner should be able to list seminars, workshop, and other training opportunities she has attended on a regular basis.
Good morning, sir. This is the continuation of our 14 Group 9, and I am the fourth reporter. My topic is the testimony of non-expert witness. Non-expert witnesses are permitted to express opinions in variety of topics, including the value of the real property. So, non-expert witness is nakapermit na sila sa opinion sa silang mga topics, including yung mga value of the real property, the appearance of person of things, the identity of individuals, the potency of individuals, feelings, the degrees of light, darkness, sound, size, and weight, and distance, and an endless number of other matters, including intoxication. The next, whenever you see a non-expert opinion testimony, you must take care to demonstrate that the lay witness has a sufficient basis to express opinion. So the non-expert opinion testimony dapat mada ingat, demonstrate na magtarong ang witness. Moreover, even if the opinion is rationally based, it will not usually admit its purpose in a otherwise appropriate. For example, a witness opinion about the veracity of another witness testimony is not admissible. Establishing sufficient basis is quite easy and comes to the situation illustrated above. So, makita ko sa bangko, yun sa establish, yun sa explain sa mga easy explanation. Illustrated above, as a general rule, the court will allow the owner of real property to express opinion on property's values because she has a vital relationship to it. So, ang owner ko sa kanang property is pwede siya ma-express ang opinion kay nasa katungod nga matag opinion na she stands to gain or lose most the court valuation. Another way putting this owner has quasi-expert status. The court presumes is qualified to give valuation opinion based on the special knowledge raising the ownership. Dapat na inanid yung owner ng matag o witness. Beware true that the lack of such knowledge of demonstrated and opinion is hypothesized, and the opinion is rejected. Indeed, if one receive an expert opinion pursue any way point of opinion's basis. So, if kuhaan daw yung opinion, pwede siya ma-rejected or ma-ended na ni. The expert testimony in court litigation. The duty of the forensic question document examiner does not end after establishing the identity of the question document as to whether written or not by one person. There are sa tao kung ano question document kanina sa detalye. The final judgment is by the court decides on the issue. So, sa final judgment sa court na gina, ang court na decides kung sa kanina siya. The document examiners present professors testimony to the court in any stated body in order to convince them regarding the result examination. In this situation, the examiner will undergo process of qualifying as an expert. Ngita silang expert para mo qualify sa mga evidence na ilang gikuan sa court. The examiners will be put in a state answering questions during the cross-examination. It is a difficult stage in court. Litigation for an examiner, the examiner on the other hand should be prepared and ready to answer questions asked by the adverse party. Dapat ready na ako na. witness na kanang tuwang talagang sa anong court. In this situation, the following must be considered. Nasa ito lang ko nga consider siya. First, your expertise. Second, knowledge of rules of evidence. Third, trial proceedings. An expert witness is a person skilled in some art, science, profession, or business, or who has experience or knowledge in relation to matters not commonly know the ordinary person. Dapat daw knowledge knowledge or skill sa art, science, profession, or sa business. The ordinary witness testifies to facts, that is, what one has seen, heard, or otherwise observed. The witness testifies to tinuod niya about sa mga evidence na sa kita, nakadungod, or naka-observe. The expert witness expressed opinion and answers hypothetical question based on the facts, presumably in the record. It should be kept in mind expert witness testimony and entirely within the province of the judge and determine the weight to be given to such opinions. So, kailangan i-determine ko ng weight niya. Kailangan pong magtanong sa mga opinion sa mga testimony. The entire province which we judge to determine. The judge is not bound by the opinion of experts. The forensic question the examiner to testify before a judge, testify nila before a judge. Dapat i-show na nila. He may be presented by the prosecution lawyer or a private lawyer. The court may allow. So, private lawyer ka na sa court mo, sila rin mo allow. His purpose is to be assistant to legal luminaries, maybe the defense in the prosecution or position of justice. Sila rin mo defense na silang nanginan sa court. He is also testify before the court. Testify before the court. This may be presented by the defense of lawyer. Ang lawyer may defense sa mga evidence ng court. One sa ng lawyer is Gonzalez in 2008. And that's all. Thank you.
Good day, sir. I'm Jonabel A. Laronal from Base Cream 3rd Delta in a Group 9 reporter, and I will report the trial preparation and testimony on page 147. As soon as you find out that you will be testifying, you should begin preparing for the witness chair. Regardless of your role, you should take the following steps. The first step is discuss with the lawyer or attorney who will present you as a witness what is expected or how your testimony is to be used and when you will expected to testify. The first step is all about having a conversation with the lawyer who will be representing you, and you should discuss what is expected as you as a witness or how your testimony will be used in the case and when you are expected to testify. Then the second is to review all available documents pertaining to the issues being litigated. This involves reviewing all relevant documents related to the case, this will help you to familiarize with the facts and evidence. Then the third is discuss your testimony with the lawyer and what line of questioning will be used to develop the case and have a general idea of how you will respond to the question. This means that you should discuss the line of questioning that will be used to present your testimony and have a general idea of how you will respond to the question. Then the fourth is consider what the defense counsel's approach will be and the area he will mostly like prove during cross-examination. This step is to anticipate the defense counsel approach and the areas they are likely to focus on during the cross-examination, and also preparing for potential questions that can help you to maintain composure and deliver your testimony effectively. These tips are essential for effective trial preparation and can help to ensure that your testimony is clear, concise, and helpful to the case. Then the next topic is all about the duties and responsibilities. The forensic examiner has various responsibilities and duties during judicial proceeding. So the first is in criminal cases, review the prosecution memorandum. These steps involves carefully examining the prosecution legal documents that outlines the case against the defendant. The memorandum typically contains the details about the alleged crime, evidence, and arguments supporting the prosecution's claims. Then the second is criminal cases. Review the charge filed, which sets forth the specific allegation of the criminal act. This responsibility requires the forensic examiner to analyze the formal document that outlines the specific criminal charges against the defendant. The charge filed provides a clear list of alleged offenses and the legal basis for the accusation. Then, next is review the anticipated evidence available to prove and disprove the charge of information in criminal cases, or support or deny the plaintiff's or respondent's position in a civil case. This crucial duty involves on evaluating the evidence that is expected to be presented in the court. So the forensic examiner needs to examine both evidence that support and contradicts the claims of the prosecution in the criminal cases or the plaintiff respondent in civil cases. The next is check the evidence to be presented in court, whether criminal or civil. So this examiner needs to check the evidence that will be presented in the court to ensure the accuracy and relevance. Then next is advise the lawyer of a potential technical problem. Advise the lawyer. They should advise the lawyer of any potential technical problems with the evidence or testimony. Next is determine the clearest manner to present the testimony in terms that the judge will understand. This means that the examiner should determine the clearest way to present their testimony and prepare a tentative summary based on the expected evidence. Next is supply the lawyer you are assisting a written statement of your qualification as a forensic examiner or a current resume. So this means that they need to supply the lawyer with a written statement of their qualification as a forensic examiner or a current resume. Next is testify only on those matters that are presented by the lawyer to the court. Testify only those matters. So The examiner should only testify on matters presented by the lawyers to the court and should do so truthfully and professionally. Next, number 10 is take notes regarding the evidence that is presented and mark as exhibits and prepare a list of documentary exhibits of both sides, whether in a criminal or a civil case. So this means that they should take notes on the evidence presented and mark as exhibit for both sides. Then last duties and responsibilities is to being alert the lawyer regarding any evidence that has been overlooked. It is important that all evidence necessary to support your testimony has been admitted. So they should be alert the lawyer regarding any overlooked evidence that is necessary to support their testimony. The basic role for the forensic examiner and investigator is to truthfully testify in court. His or her demeanor should reflect professionalism. Fostering cooperation with the lawyers can be greatly beneficial. Communication between your lawyer can enlighten you as well as those around you on the case. So this emphasizes the importance of professionalism, integrity, and cooperation in the field of forensic science. This principle ensures that justice is served and that the evidence is presented accurately and fairly in court. And that will be all, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. I am Angie Flores from Section Delta. I'm the Group 9 reporter. So I will tackle about the elements of effective expert testimony and proper courtroom behavior. So first, the expert witness before testifying in court must have his evidence and testimony adequately prepared and should have at least one pre-trial conference with a trial attorney. Expert witness must base their opinion on enough information, observation, test, experiment, and other data to make them reliable. Counsel should ensure that the expert has been provided with all the appropriate evidence. During pre-trial conference, the court may learn about issues related to the trial, hear opinions, and handle matters that might interrupt the court. After the pre-trial conference, the court shall issue an order reciting the action taken, the fact stipulated, and evidence marked. And the second is the expert witness must have confidence in his opinion, which is based upon his knowledge, experience, and proper preparation. Confidence is an intelligence faith based on fact. An expert witness, a person who offers their professional opinion on a matter based on their education, training, certification, skills, or experience. Their opinion is accepted by the judge as an expert and is used to help the court understand complex issues and make decisions. So third, the expert witness must create a good impression to himself, to the court. He should come to court dressed simply in clean, conservative street clothes in keeping with the prevailing style. Expert witness must a good impression to stand in court of a judge, being simple and clean, conservative attire and consistent with current style, and speak clearly, avoiding unfamiliar to non-expert, and respect the judge who front of you. Fourth, enter the courtroom with an aggressive and positive walk, giving the assurance that you are prepared to beat whatever may control. It is the walk and posture of most men that indicate their character. Before entering the courtroom, make an aggressive and passive walk for what you are. Walk confidently into the courtroom, conveying preparedness and assurance, and especially to maintain a straight, assertive posture, conveying confidence and self-assurance. 5. Upon reaching the witness stand, turning to the court to be sworn in, he should raise his hand without hesitation and let his voice ring out in a clear and forceful "I do." Without hesitation, he takes the stand and sit down with ease in comfortable but erect position. Upon the reaching the witness, walk purposefully to stand, maintaining eye contact, and raise your hand without hesitation, clearly stating "I do" or sworn. Speak clearly, firmly, and confidently, and also sit comfortably, maintaining upright posture. Number 5. The expert must have the ability to explain his technical subject in simple and clear language, understandable by the trial judge. Make it easy for the judge to understand what you are talking about. Use distinct and expressive sentence with a simple and clear and logical presentation. The expert witness must have an ability to explain before she speak an attorney. Be fortunate, clearly speaking language or understandable by the judge, being confident what you say by the judge. And the last is present your opinion in a friendly spirit, be natural and speak in a normal, down-to-earth and congenial manner. Be human. Sincerity is displayed by the expert in the manner of his speech. It will be conveyed in the ring of his voice, his facial expressions, and his bodily movement. The slightest indication by his tone of voice or by any gesture that he is doubtful will destroy the confidence of the judge. You cannot hide in sincerity. If the expert does not believe in his ideas or opinion wholeheartedly, he cannot make others believe in him, and voice never carries conviction. Be natural and speak in normal and congenial manner. You should be familiar of what history you can say and legal of his profession, being truthfully of time of he has been for question document examiner. He must have enough knowledge and skill. More evidence should be shown in the judges to believe your opinion. And that's all for my topic for today, sir. And thank you.
So, good day, sir. I am John Paul Dargusa from Section Delta, third year. And I'm a Group 9, the last reporter. And my topic is qualifying in court as an expert witness. A witness who gives testimony concerning question document in court must not only understand how it is analyzed, compared, and interpreted. So, ang witness dapat kamao ka mangistorya, kamao ka mo understand how it's analyzed, compared, and interpreted. So dapat di ka mauwaw, dapat kamao ka istorya sa atubangan.
how it was photographed, developed, uncharted, but he must also be familiar with the history, literature, and legal proceedings of his profession. He should be able to state truthfully the length of time he has been engaged as a question document examiner. Dapat as a witness pod ang time nimo sakto nga inag-adto nimo. Examiner, he must have enough knowledge of some theories, studies, and research involving question document examination. As a witness, you must have enough knowledge of some theories. Dapat na kay knowledge sa mga theories na kay kabhauan ba basta mga dapat expert ka ani nga witness bahin sa kaso ba. The question document examiner must have learned the principle of identification and must have shown evidence of training and expertise to the court in order not to find difficulties in obtaining the court's recognition as an expert. So, as a witness po, you must have learned principle. Dapat nakaikamhuan sa principle of identification and must have shown the evidence of training and expertise to the court. Dapat usa ka witness di na ka makulbaan, dapat di ka magduha-duha og pangistorya sa atubangan sa court mo nang as expert witness. So maora to.